Thank you so much for tuning into my show, William Wallace for America. I appreciate your time and I am grateful that you're spending it with me. In today's podcast, I am going to be all over the First Amendment in a lot of different ways, where we're losing it, where we need to protect it, who is really on the side of the First Amendment. Is it the Republicans or is it the Democrats? Is Donald Trump really the H word, like some people are saying that he is, because of some of the things that he's saying that they are interpreting as anti First Amendment? Did I say First Amendment? Did I say Second Amendment? Of course, I mean the First Amendment, but I love the Second Amendment, as you always know, which is why I tell people to go to bondarms.com, one of the sponsors of my show. Send them a message and tell them you heard about Bond Arms from William Wallace's show. And today's show is brought to you by Patriot Mobile. Save some money. They got plans that fit any budget. Get the same or better service by going to patriotmobile.com/WWFA. You're going to listen to today's show and you're going to scratch your head a little bit and you're going to go, is William going anti-Trump? Then you might at some point go, oh no, he still loves Trump. The reality is this: I'm not leaving my support of Trump policies. I'm not leaving my support of the sentiment of MAGA, Make America Great Again. But I will tell you that I'm going to point out some things that he's saying that I think are not giving him, they're not making him look good. And I don't mean that as a way of criticizing him. I simply mean it as a way to point out some things to make, not to be redundant, make my point on what we, the people, need to do to protect our First Amendment, to honor our Creator who gave us our rights and our liberties and our freedoms, and how we can be the guardians of our liberty instead of always turning to politicians. If you're a Democrat or if you're a Republican, everybody's always throwing stones at each other and always say, oh, it's them who's taking away our freedoms. Or in this case, like I'm going to point out in this show, there's some of the things that Donald Trump is saying, which I'll just admit, I don't agree with some of the things that he's saying. I do listen to them and say, and why is he saying that? Because sometimes I go, but I'm not going to make excuses for him, but I will tell you what I think about some of those statements, not just out of support, but also out of pointing out what all the sides are doing. So again, we the people can be the guardians of our liberty. So as I said, I'm not leaving support of the Trump policies because I still believe that there are a lot of his policies that are great for America, good for our economy, and they're a whole lot better than what we would have gotten from the other candidate. And I'll go through some of this. So I'm trying to give you kind of everything in the nutshell right now to give you kind of an outline. But the reality is, you just got to kind of let this show unfold today. So sit down, grab some popcorn, or grab some coffee, and tune in here. Again, there's a lot of things that Trump has been saying. So I'm going to kind of go through some of the things that Trump has been saying that I get why some of these things have been making people feel uneasy and calling him the H word. No, I will never condone somebody calling Trump the H word. The H word, the H word that begins with an H, ends in an R, and I love it. All the fascists like to call Trump Hitler. because they're saying, "Oh, he's Hitler," but they'll do things that are more fascist than what they're accusing Trump of doing. But again, I'm gonna bring up these things that he's saying, not because I'm attacking him, but I do get, and I will admit this, I do get why there are some people that are fearful about our First Amendment because of some things that he's saying. But I'm not going to talk about those, but I'm going to give you some things that, well, if Donald Trump were listening, President Trump, if you're listening, I'm going to make some suggestions on what I think could be done better. I get it. Not that you need to be doing better, but you never know. Some of the things, some of my ideas might actually work. We'll get there in just a minute. President Donald Trump is engaged in an all. This is from an article in oh goodness, it was, I got it down here. No, I don't. Hang on one second. It is from an article that I pulled out of the I'm gonna do this. I am gonna copy and I'm gonna paste it into my browser so I can tell you. It's MSM. There he goes. The article is from MSM, and I just want to give credit where credit's due. Let's face it. I'm not. Here we go. Here we go. Got it all pulled up. It is MSM.com. How Trump's most favored White House reporters declaring war on the First Amendment. This article goes into although Senator Ted Cruz is far from a never Trumper, he found some common ground with the never Trump right when he forcefully called out the Federal Communications Commission chairman, Brendan Carr, accusing him of sounding like a mafia boss when he threatened to revoke ABC's broadcast license if they didn't take action against late night host Jimmy Kimmel. Cruz argued that attacking the First Amendment in 2025 could come back to haunt Republicans if a left wing president comes to power in the future. And many never Trump conservatives and libertarians responded that while they often disagree with Cruz, he was spot on this time. This article went into how people are perceiving Trump is using the FCC to silence people. Once again, the optics are really bad here. And I get why my friends that are on the left, and look, my friends that are on the right, and just people that are awake and they're saying, hey, Trump is saying this. Again, I'm not saying that I am not supporting Trump's policies or that I am turning on Trump, so to speak. Nor am I saying that I'm in full support of everything he does, because obviously this is something that he said that has stoked some fires that may hurt him, his approval rating, or hurt Republicans in future elections. So my reason for bringing this stuff up is not to attack Trump, but simply to point out why I think that there are people who are fearful of losing our First Amendment rights in America, and what could be done to turn this around or bring people together. So that was the first article, just to give you the gist of it. I'm not going to read the whole article. For one, you can read it yourself. All you got to do is Google Trump's attack on the First Amendment, and a lot of this stuff comes up that I'm going to be talking about tonight. So I don't want to go into a lot of detail and read the articles because you can read those yourself. I'm giving you the gist of it. President Donald Trump, it was quoted out of that article, is engaged in an all-out assault on speech rights aimed at forcing every sector of society to adopt his administration's viewpoint or risk discrimination, punishment, and in some cases, jail. Revocation of rights and deportation. President Trump on Thursday floated revoking TV broadcast licenses for networks that cover him negatively a day after ABC's indefinite suspension of Jimmy Kimmel. Of course, we know that he has been brought back brought back on air. My reason for bringing this up is I actually heard that press conference, and I may repeat this again, but Trump was saying, that after all the good things that he's done, how people are still attacking him, and that should be illegal. Again, of course, it pertains to the First Amendment. So a lot of people that either don't like Trump already or people that are cautious of Trump, of course, they're going to say Trump's going to remove our First Amendment rights. I'll give you an alert here. I'll give you what's the word I'm looking for? I'm gonna kind of steal my own thunder here. We'll say I personally don't believe that Trump is going to remove our First Amendment rights, nor do I think he's going to do something like the H word. That's it begins at H, ends in R. I know everybody likes to call him Hitler. I don't think he is going to do anything that is closely or remotely close to Hitler-esque. I don't think he's going to take away our First Amendment rights. I do think that he's doing something behind the scenes, possibly, that is going to, and that's how Trump does. He puts a news story out. He kind of gives you some food or some red meat, if you will, to go after, and then he kind of comes out with a solution later. But I don't think he is going to take away anybody's First Amendment rights, even though some of these things that he's saying is a little scary, especially for people who don't like him. And of course, for people who are the never Trumpers on the right, but the supporters who know him are pretty certain he's not going to take away our First Amendment rights. I'm setting the table. I'm not going down a road where, oh, you said you were to point out some things and now you sound like you're pro-Trump. I'm doing that for a reason, but I'm going to get to where I'm going with this here in just a minute. So just hang on. I've got lots to talk about with the First Amendment today, and also in the beginning here with what's being thrown around by Trump and his administration. Trump said, they give me only bad publicity or press. The president said of the broadcast networks on the flight back from London. I mean, they're getting a license. I would think maybe their license should be taken away and it will be up to Brendan Carr. So, of course, the president's going to get accused of removing our First Amendment because he's saying here that he could do it through the FCC, which I'm explaining later how the FCC has its power, which positions are appointed by the president. Not where I'm going with this right now. But the reality is this. He says things sometimes as a way of flexing his muscles. Not that he's going to put the hammer down with those muscles, but it is a little scary to hear sometimes, especially by the people who don't like him. I'm going to continue to set the table here. The former president who has invoked his First Amendment right to launch a bevy of attacks against federal and state judges, the former president, that is, and state judges suggested it should be illegal to rebuke judicial decisions or try and advocate in favor of a certain decision. It should be illegal what happens, Trump told the crowd in Pennsylvania. You have these guys like playing the ref like the great Bobby Knight. These people should be put in jail the way they talk about our judges and our justices, trying to get them to sway their vote, sway their decision. And he said it should be illegal for people to criticize him for all the good things he has done. I know I said that earlier. Of course, and I'm tripling down on this because Trump says these things. I really don't think that he means that he's going to do it. I just simply think that it's a way that he is trying to galvanize his base, because a lot of people on the right get excited when he doubles down and triples down that he's going to shut down anybody who disagrees with him, i.e., us, when it comes to some of these narratives and ideologies and things and beliefs that he and many of his supporters hold on to. I get it. You're galvanizing your base, but I'm going to come up with an idea later that I think could be done where you can galvanize your base and still be able to bring people together. Um, Jimmy Kimmel, for instance, now we are finding out, and I'm going to kind of bounce around a little bit. So hang on with me. I'm not going to keep the same train of thought here because this thought goes off in a lot of directions. And while I tried to corral it and be able to say, hey, I'm going to kind of organize these topics in a way that really wasn't a way because it jumps around just like this story has jumped around, just like all these narratives that jumped around, and just like what people are saying is jumping around. They're all over the place, especially people who don't like Trump. They will bounce on the topics and they'll go from topic to topic, and somehow or other they mingle them all together. But that's another story for another day. Jimmy Kimmel, now we're finding out that Kimmel was on his way out weeks before he made the comment about Charlie Kirk, and actually before Trump was even making any comments that Jimmy Kimmel shouldn't be there. I still think that it was an opportune time for the network to get rid of Kimmel, and they just kind of used a culmination of all those things all at once to kind of magnify the reason they got rid of him. And of course, Trump didn't do himself a favor when he kind of spiked the ball on Kimmel being let go. Again, I'll make some comments on that later. You know what? I'll make a comment on that right now, actually. I really believe that had he not spiked the ball about it and been a little bit more passive about it, it would have made him look like a little bit more of a leader for positive actions against people who are abusing their First Amendment right. Not that Kimmel was abusing his First Amendment right to speak out about his lack of, love for Trump, but he was in a workplace, so he was not abusing his First Amendment right. He was violating company policy. So if a person in office would have simply doubled down on and pertain and I guess kept it on topic that, hey, his company didn't like his ratings and his company didn't and he was violating company policy, so they got rid of him. It would not have looked like he was trying to control the First Amendment or spike the ball. And again, I'm not being critical of Trump. I'm just really speaking my opinion, which I believe is based on truth and what I think a lot of people think. I mean, let's face it. My show, William Wallace for America, sounds like I'm one of those far right guys. But the reality is this: I'm just an American guy that not only loves this country, but loves our freedoms, loves our Constitution, loves my God, loves my Jesus, loves capitalism, loves everything that makes this country great and where freedom prospers for everybody. I'm just an average, everyday old American guy like everybody else, and I think that we all agree on more things than we disagree with. So there's a lot of things that Trump stands for that I think would bring more people together. I just think that, hey, sometimes Trump's likes to spike the ball. And in this case, with Jimmy Kimmel, had he not spiked the ball, I believe that he could have made the point and not sounded like he is working behind the scenes to take away people's First Amendment. I'll digress on that and continue with where I'm going. But let's not forget that Oh, by the way, as of today, they're bringing Kimmel back. But again, where everybody wanted to accuse Trump of getting rid of Kimmel, and it was made public that they were getting rid of him weeks before he made that comment and weeks before Trump made the comment. Even now, they're only bringing him back on a very limited um, broadcast, or i.e., a very short leash. So that's just kind of proof to you that Trump really had nothing to do with this, but it's getting pegged on him because, let's face it, the people who don't like Trump are going to blame everything on him just because they don't like him, which is another point that I want to make here, that we can't keep pegging and pinning and blaming somebody who you might not like for all the things that you think are going wrong. Because when you do that, you start focusing on an individual that you don't like, which is usually because of the narratives and ideologies, or just because he says things you don't like. Either way, you start focusing on the person that the media has you focusing on, or your hate has you focusing on, and you don't focus or even look at the things that would be better solutions to actually fix the problem in our country. And that's what I want to point out that I think is going wrong here also. While Trump in some ways is not doing himself any favors by some of the things that he says, I don't think that he would actually do that. But that's just Trump. Accept him for who he is and not who you think he is. And by doing that, you might actually find some ways to not necessarily support him if you really don't like him. That's not going to happen. But find some other solutions along the way that help protect, preserve, and promote our First Amendment and all of our freedoms and liberties. Stop making it about Trump just because you don't like him, and start making it about freedom and liberty. But again, Kimmel was going to get fired before, and that's just what it boils down to. I don't support the firing of anyone if I don't like what they say. I just don't listen. And one of the things that have happened in the last couple of weeks, since the Kirk shooting, the last 11, 12 days, is that a lot of people have gotten very happy by people who are getting fired because of what they've said at the workplace. And of course, a lot of Democrats are going to say, well, they're losing their First Amendment right, and that's what happens. And when you have Trump as president, he's not protecting the First Amendment rights. These people are getting fired, and they peg all this on him. Follow me here. The reasons I'm being very blunt about this isn't because I've lost support of Trump, or definitely not because I'm hating on him, but I'm pointing out some of the things that I think have been maybe things that he could have said differently, as a way to point out how everybody is misdirecting their anger or their resentment, when instead they could be focusing it on solutions which truly protect our First Amendment instead of blaming the straw man. Again, this is just simply a way to make you look at things a little bit differently. And while I'm certainly pointing out some of the things that Trump did and said, it's to make the point that, hey, I believe that he's not going to take away our First Amendment, but I also believe that if there was somebody else saying some things a little bit differently, we could bring more people together so the other side doesn't get away with it, because I'll get to that in a minute. The Democrats have attacked our First Amendment rights more than what they think Donald Trump did. Not defending Trump, but I'm going to talk about those things here in just a minute. We have to fight back by speaking our truths louder. And we got to do it with facts if we really want to protect our First Amendment rights. Another thought pertaining to Jimmy Kimmel: do businesses have to protect the First Amendment? Do they have to abide by the Constitution? And do businesses have to say, we respect, the Constitution, and it's your First Amendment right to say what you want to say? They actually don't, because they can have company policies that don't allow employees to say things that they either don't agree with or that might hurt their company. And that's why they can limit what is said through company policy. So, do they? Who else does not have to respect the First Amendment? What is it? Like I said, it's a business, but does a sports franchise have the right to protect to respect the First Amendment? So you see, there are areas where the First Amendment does not necessarily have to be tantamount, or the rule of the First Amendment, or it's not a law, by the way. It's basically a statement that says you've got the right to speak out, that the government does not have the right to control you. You see, the government doesn't have the right to control you. So a business can get away with not respecting the First Amendment and being able to censor, fire, demote, or whatever the case may be, an employee who says something that is either outside their company guidelines, or maybe just drops the ratings, maybe makes them look bad. A business has that right. A politician does not have that right. A politician is sworn to uphold the Constitution, and if they're not, they should be censured to themselves or taken out of office through a vote or impeachment. But again, I don't think that Trump has gone that far as to actually do things to remove the First Amendment, albeit he said some things that, I get it. The soft-minded Democrats, instantly scream, the H word, and other intellectuals are seeing that, hey, this doesn't feel right. And if they don't like Trump, it's going to feel worse. If they're a never Trumper, maybe it just doesn't feel right. Either way, it could be done better, which I'll explain a little bit more later as I go. I want to kind of keep moving along here with some of these notes. I could give, and I could give more examples of what he has said, Trump that is getting interpreted as anti-First Amendment, or give people fear that he is going to regulate it. But you can look that up. And for, if you don't like Trump, you've already got all of them in your back pocket. I'm going somewhere with this thought. We're going to keep on going. I don't think he's going to get rid of the First Amendment, nor do I think he's going to regulate it. Am I concerned about the FCC? That is yet to be seen. If we start seeing more violations of First Amendment rights through the FCC, that's going to be public. We don't see that right now. It's not happening. Like I said in the beginning, oftentimes Trump does things and says things as a distraction, so you don't see what he's actually working on. And then later he comes out with something that he did as a solution. And everybody goes, but you were talking about this. He goes, yeah, that was to distract you. These are some of the things that we need to be aware of, because we are allowing ourselves to be distracted. And as a result, as we're being more distracted, All the politicians are getting away with more things. And are we really doing things to protect our First Amendment rights? No. If we're allowing ourselves to be distracted, we're not protecting our own rights. We're giving them up by allowing ourselves to be distracted. Again, I can give more examples of things that he's done, but I'll continue with this. I don't think he's going to, but this kind of language not only scares people, and it helps them prove their reasons for disliking him and feeling like he's going to take away the First Amendment, but it creates fear and division. That's what I think is the problem here. Not that he's going to actually do it, not that he's going to take away some of his First Amendment rights, but that it creates fear and division. And look, it might benefit him because fear and division could be the fear and division dividing up Republicans and Democrats, or dividing the people who truly believe in the First Amendment and the people who use it to promote their narratives and ideologies while trying to shut down everybody else's First Amendment that does not agree with them. Now, there's some that are going to say, like I've been telling you for a few minutes now, this is how Trump does things. But he's going to use the reaction to give himself cover while he works on the solution. The danger in Trump's choice of words are these. It's the bigger problem. We ignore the fact that the other side is doing it. The danger in what Trump has done by threatening some of these things is that people focus on what he's saying, but it causes them to forget what the other side has done. Obama and Biden both, and look, and many more Democrats other than them. You can, by the way, do a Google search, Democrats that are against the First Amendment. I did it already. And you just get names and names and names and storylines. So the reality is, and the bigger problem is that the Democrats have been more anti-First Amendment, but because they don't have an evil villain that everybody points to. Sure, the Republicans didn't like Obama. Sure, the Republicans like to talk about how frail and Alzheimer's Biden is and was. But Trump's personality, his ways, have worked against him for the Democrats and the never Trumpers. It's galvanized people on both sides because it's actually galvanized his supporters much greater than supporters of other political candidates I've seen in the past. But the going back to the problem is that everybody's so focused on what Trump is saying, they're not remembering what Biden and Obama all said in their anti-First Amendment things. And I'm going to pull up another news article here right now that kind of goes into that in itself. And that one basically talked about the Biden administration. This is going back a little bit. The Biden administration is waging war on the First Amendment. This past Independence Day, a U.S. federal judge in Missouri versus Biden found that the Biden administration violated America's First Amendment rights in urging social media companies to censor opinions. It also found that the administration had funded universities and non-governmental organizations to create a veritable hit list of censorship, which it used to tell social media companies which people and ideas to de-boost and censor. You see what I'm saying? Because Trump is mad about what's being said, and he throws out these things like he's going to have the FCC chairman, or how dare they say things about him when he's done so many good things. Of course, I kind of changed that up a little bit. Not being critical of Trump. And no, I'm not kissing ass right now. I'm just basically pointing this out because nobody's really looking at how much the Democrats did. They're not going, wow, the Democrats were more of an enemy of the First Amendment than the right or Trump ever has been. And I'm doing that because I want people to open their eyes that it's not one-sided. Because the minute you focus on Trump and these news stories and forget about what the Democrats did, everybody vilifies Trump. The problem becomes the Republicans become vilified. The midterms happen, the next presidential election happens, and they use it against us. And then when the Democrats get in office, they go back to doing things that are anti-First Amendment, anti-Constitution, and we all get screwed. We have to stop fighting with each other. No, it's Trump. No, it's this. And recognize where it's coming from and how it's being done so we can stand up for our First Amendment. I'll continue. An appeal district reinforced the first part of the jurisdiction. Evidence revealed that employees at a dozen federal government agencies and the Biden White House directly pressured social media companies to censor viewpoints it found contrary to the official narrative it pushed to the American people. Depositions of high-ranking career staff and political employees and unearthed emails between the government and social media companies like Facebook and Twitter X revealed the government's tactics to suppress speech. And this was happening during Biden. Emails from the White House to Facebook. I've kind of covered some of that a little bit. The point is, the problem is that the government and these entities are bad at identifying misinformation. The point of it is, this happened even more egregiously during Biden and Obama. And if you look at what Obama did with the Russiagate hoax and how they pulled this information out, created a narrative and put it out to try to destroy Trump, that's a violation not of the First Amendment, but it does affect our First Amendment because they're using our First Amendment as a way to change our hearts and minds, because our memories are short. Or are we just being cognitively dissident that we forget about how the other side, or our side, as it may be sometime, is saying anti-First Amendment? You see, what happens is, the reason I'm pointing out some of the things that Trump said isn't because I'm being anti-Trump. It's because I want the people on my own side to say, yes, support somebody for what you want to support, but don't blindly follow. Don't blindly agree. Don't be cognitively dissident to the truth or what's happening, because when you do, you are in essence covering up. You're so pro supportive sometimes, it speaks louder than your voice, when you could be uncovering what the other side did as a way to wake up more Americans, because there's going to be future elections. And if we're not all awake, we're going to find ourselves, when the pendulum swings, with somebody on the other side doing just as bad. How do we stop that? By being awake, not being a lapdog, supporting who we love and like and whose policies we like them for who they are, like them for the good things they do. And also, when you do that, when you like somebody for who they are and you support them for the good things, you don't empower them to be able to take it a step further. They realize, hey, I got their support right here. I don't have to go to the extreme to galvanize their support, like this First Amendment. I have their support. I don't have to say, I'm going to shut up everybody that doesn't agree with us to galvanize their support. I'm saying this carefully as a way to wake up people. When we wake each other up in a positive way and we rally around the First Amendment and our Constitution, we empower good elected officials and or we empower people in office with the ability to be able to act and govern with authority from people, but in respect of our Constitution, our freedoms, and our liberties. And yes, sometimes those are different, which is why I separated them up. So we got to keep cheering on the good people for doing what they're doing. We can't become complacent when our own side is doing things that's, even when they sound anti First Amendment, it's like I'm doing right now. I support Trump and his policies, but because I see things that he has said that a lot of people, even on his own side, is disagreeing with, I'm calling it out as a way to bring more of us together to say, hey, look, we support you for doing good things. You can stop right there and just support our Constitution. It's up to us. It is a team. It's a way for us to empower or give more power to our elected officials in a way that they're going to use it for good. And that's why we need to be alert on what's happening. I'm getting a little sidetracked here, so let me get back on track. As a result, our government, when we blindly just shake our head yes and don't guide our leaders, our elected officials, our politicians, people that we are galvanized around, when we don't empower them for good, big government gets involved. And that's how government gets bigger, is when we don't empower our elected officials to do the right thing or tell them we got their back and they don't have to go further. When they feel like they've got to double down, if they hey, look, I'm not hearing from my supporters, I got to double down, triple down, which is kind of what I thought might be happening as Trump threatened more sanctions or more control of the First Amendment. When we, the people, don't show that we have the backs of our elected officials, bureaucracy gets bigger. It grows. Because when the people are complacent and politicians aren't being supported to do the right thing, bureaucracy gets an opportunity to set in, and they only create more rules, laws, and legislation that circumvent our Constitution and take away our freedoms, while we cheer because, wow, our elected officials doubled down, they did good. And next thing we know, bureaucracy gets in the way. When one side does it, the other side says, well, they're the H word. we got to realize that both sides are going to do it if we don't show them we're paying attention. That's all that I'm doing right here, right now, is say, look, paying attention. But there's a way to do this that you can show that you are paying attention, and that you're watching out for our best interest, but also as a way to be able to show people that you're not going to take away the First Amendment. We have taken control of the First Amendment. We have to take control of the First Amendment by respecting each other's different opinions and still respecting them. And then we can not only take power away from all elected officials and strengthen the power of our Constitution, but even more importantly, we then respect our Creator and His divine blessing of freedom. And then we not only gain God's favor, but we also gain His help. And I would rather have His help than big government's help or bureaucracy's help, or, having elected officials switching sides on us. But we are losing our First Amendment rights in other ways to where we're not even paying attention to. And I'm going to tell you the other ways that we're losing our First Amendment that nobody pays attention to. People in office take it away from us by using their position of power and they use their bigger position as an elected official to shut up their critics. They take away your free speech with their narratives and their ideologies. People in office use the media to spread their ideologies and their news stories that make you feel guilty if you disagree with them, that bring you to their side because they either make you feel guilty or they make you feel like they're here for you and they got your back. So you don't have to speak. They got it for you. And if you disagree, they will make you feel guilty, again, to the media. Government and bureaucracy silences you with the rules they create in the agencies without respect for the Constitution, like the FCC rules, which, by the way, just to give you a little description of the FCC, so you see why some people that are in the know are afraid. The Federal Communications Commission is an independent federal agency with 5 members appointed by the president, subject to confirmation by the Senate, by the way. The Federal Communications Commission is an independent agency of the United States federal government that regulates communications, i.e. the First Amendment, by radio, television, wire, internet, Wi-Fi, satellite, cable, which, by the way, the FCC does already controls your First Amendment rights. You can't say certain things on the radio. They have forms you got to fill out if you're a radio host. There's lots of ways that they're already controlling it. It was established, by the way, in 1934. When you read about the Federal Communications Commission, you really realize that they have a lot of control of free speech in that one bureaucratic agency. So while we're screaming at Trump for what he said, or Biden or Obama, that's where it really happens. A lot of it happens. It's a power grab that has been in the hands of all presidents on both sides of the aisle, while a few appointees are in control. And don't forget for 1 minute that hundreds, if not thousands, of career Bureaucratic agents have been embedded in this system. People with narratives and ideologies from all the previous administrations muddy up the waters and create policies for what can be said on the airwaves. Meanwhile, we're fussing about what, and I say we, I'm being collective. Meanwhile, you're fussing about what Trump is saying. And I can joke about it. I get it. Look, like I said, the reason I'm doing this is because I get it. I get that the things that he has said have caused a lot of people alarm. And I will agree with you for having alarm on what was said. My consolation for that is that I don't think that he's going to take away the First Amendment. No, I don't think he's going to bring in the brown shirts or his, you know, devout followers to take away your First Amendment rights. I don't think it's going to happen. I think the bigger problem is that everybody's becoming so distracted by it that we're not looking at what the other side has done, and we're not looking at ways to respect each other and work together. So while we're blaming elected officials on both sides of the aisle, we're forgetting that all the other guys on the other side did it, while our guys maybe did it. Who knows? We are giving big government more power in the meantime. Your First Amendment rights are also removed by others when they use narratives or words to make you feel guilty for thinking a certain way. And it's not just elected officials, it's groups like, let's say Black Lives Matter or whatever group on the right you might want to say. When they come up with narratives and ideologies and social media, they make people feel guilty. That guilt takes away your First Amendment right because you don't want to say things that might make you labeled a racist or a hater or whatever. The difference is with President Trump is he just doesn't care. He speaks his mind, which is why people like him too. But that being said, I have some other ideas later. Got a couple questions first. What protects the Second Amendment? What would a leader do to bring more people together and solve problems stemming from the Second Amendment? Note, not because of it for what it gets blamed for. What would a leader, I'm going to repeat this. What protects the Second Amendment? What would a leader do to bring more people together and solve problems stemming from the Second Amendment? Not because of it, but what it gets blamed for. My thought. Respect and being involved. That's what protects the Second Amendment. Respect for each other's Second Amendment right and being involved will get us the blessings from God to be able to empower us with the ability to speak out. That respect for each other's rights and being involved and being informed, because you don't just get informed by speaking your own mind on the things that you've been reading and the things that you've been studying. You get informed by listening to other people's First Amendment rights. And as a result, you're informed. Your ideas are going to be different. You're going to get better ideas. You're going to get better solutions. And you're going to get blessings from God because God is who gave us our free will. He gave us the freedoms that we have. And when we respect each other and we respect Him, He's going to have our back. Not some elected official in DC leading us around with narratives and ideologies that we follow like the Pied Piper. And no, I'm not pertaining to Trump or anybody in particular. I'm pertaining to all the elected officials that do it. Stop blaming Trump for what he's saying. Start paying attention to what everybody else is saying. Because, look, like I said, can we criticize Trump for what he said that has given people the wrong impression? Absolutely. Absolutely. I, I'm pointing it out because I'm saying, look, when you have respect for each other, when elected officials have respect for each other, they become more powerful leaders. When an elected official not only shows respect for each other's First Amendment rights and shows not a respect, but I don't want to say empathy, compassion, professionalism, it empowers them more and it empowers the people and it builds support in a way that our country prospers. I've got a few more things on where we're losing our First Amendment rights. Social media takes away our First Amendment rights through censorship. Popular politicians and political pundits do it with their narratives and ideologies. I know that I've repeated that already, but experts, the experts, the climate change scientists or, the medical experts, they take away your First Amendment right with their hidden agendas and their narratives, take away your First Amendment rights with the rhetoric and narratives that they use when they use rather fear to take away your voice because to speak out against them makes you unintelligent. Like when the climate scientist gets on and says, in 5 years, there'll be no more ice on the planet. And, 10 years later, we see the Arctic, ice growing. When, I'm not going to tell you jokes right now, but when you listen to the experts on any topic and they come out with their fact, but yet you come out later and say, I found out that the polar ice caps are actually increasing. The people that listen to the experts' narratives and ideologies take away your First Amendment right because if you try to give proof that they're wrong, you're the one who's unintelligent. They just took away your First Amendment right by making you feel unintelligent and not speaking out. The left hates free speech because they feel it is an attack on their beliefs. They can't defend their beliefs with facts. So one of the only tools they use is violence. They use protest and they use criticism because they hate free speech because it promotes unity behind ideas. Didn't say good ideas. I didn't say bad ideas. Didn't say true ideas, false ideas. First Amendment is about not only your right to speak, but it's about your right to share ideas. And the leftists hate the a free speech platform. Leftists hate when a community gets to share ideas because it takes power away from them. Their unity comes from a belief to protect their narratives at all cost. The left promotes violence using their rights to free speech while expecting you, I'm gonna repeat, the left promotes violence using their rights to free speech while expecting you to shut up because they don't hear their words coming out of your mouth. If they only want to hear their words coming out of your mouth, of your mouth. And if they don't, they're going to call you, you're the one who doesn't believe in First Amendment. But they use their free speech to promote the absurdities of their realities. Their unity rallies around their belief system while expecting anyone else to give up theirs. Now, I did find a whole bunch of memes, but I'm going to go over a couple of them for the rest of my show that kind of galvanize some of the things I've been saying. And I want to share those with you because I really think that they're important. But before we do, I want to thank the Wellness Company for promoting medical freedom and using their First Amendment right to be able to talk about alternatives to the health system. Go to twc.health. That's the Wellness Company at twc.health/WWFA. And also, of course, Patriot Mobile.